She smelled it before she saw the glow, turning her face into the stirring breeze to take in the bracing scent of clean, perfect water. It was almost intoxicating, so different than the brackish, muddy water of the barrens, and crisper still than any spring she'd ever encountered. She crept slowly toward the well, her feet sinking into the detritus of the forest floor, leaf and moss, moist soil and dew cushioning each step that took her closer to her destination. She paused momentarily as she caught sight of the moon hanging large and luminous over the trees, her heart pounding in her chest in a moment of superstition. The moon belonged to the elves, or so they believed, Juuli knew, and for a moment it seemed as if it might swallow her up for her transgression. One hand clenched the vial she'd stolen a little tighter, lest it fly from her grasp, while the other toyed with a braid the same color as the moonlight that dappled her shoulders through the canopy of the trees. Her spear was a comforting pressure against her back as she crouched and surveyed the clearing, the light from the Moonwell limning everything in its vicinity, illuminating nothing but trees and rocks and a lone white wolf skirting the tree line across the way. She threw her shoulders back and stood to her full height, throwing a challenging look at the sky before stepping to the round lip of the well. The water seemed to coalesce like light within the confines of the stone, its surface winking and glinting a welcome as she approached and prepared to fill the vial. She would never shame herself by admitting it later, but her hand shook as she lowered the vessel toward the surface of the water, and she flinched at that first moment her fingers made contact. Tiny bubbles broke the surface as the vial filled, and her tension lessened when no ill effects overtook her. She replaced the stopper at last and sighed, lingering a moment to admire the reflected waves of light that played across her pale skin, her heart growing heavier at the thought of returning to the veldt. Ashenvale called to her. She had known it the moment she first crossed over into the lushness of the forest, despite the fact it was largely occupied by her people's enemies. The forest was in her blood as surely as it was in the blood of the elves that claimed it, and she felt a pang of separation every time she crossed back over to the barrens. She dreamed time and time again of walking as freely through the forest and jungle as she did across the dusty grasslands and the stone spires of Thousand Needles. She dreamed of driving out the orcs and gobbers that ripped the trees from the ground and scarred the land beyond sanity. For what sense did it make to destroy the very earth you fought and died for? She dreamed of a time when healing and building and creating would be as important as war and killing and destroying everything the other guy had. She dreamed. She blinked, suddenly aware of a chill that seized her legs and set her teeth to rattling. Disoriented, she tried to clear her vision of liquid light that filled her eyes and left room for nothing else. And it was a long moment before she realized she was standing in the middle of the well, ensconced in its glow. Her pulse raced as she stumbled to the rim, letting herself fall over the cold stone to hit the ground with a muted thud, vial still in hand and her mind racing over what had happened. Her chest rose and fell with each panicked breath, until finally her eyes cleared enough to make out the stars and the alien goddess that looked down upon her. "Witch!" she roared at the moon where it hung high overhead, gleaming like polished bone. The wolf skittered and bolted, surprised by the cry that tore through the peace of the night like a knife through skin. She angrily jammed the vial into a belt pouch and regained her feet, breaking into a lope as she hastily put as much distance as she could between her scattered thoughts and the magic of the well. But it would be a long time before she could hide from the moon.